You're just encouraging more tax avoidance by trying to implement a tax that many other countries around the world have actually let go of simply because of those challenges.
Pat, what would you do?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I said, Pat, I was saying, if not a wealth tax, what would you do?
I think there are lots of ways to go about it. I'm a big fan of the wealth tax, but you could also go after capital gains. You could go after the estate tax. I think this is a really healthy, serious debate to have in the Democratic Party. I don't think it's a civil war. I think it's a really good, healthy policy debate.
Yeah, but Pat, I mean, these are two very different proposals. So Larry Summers says, look, there's an easy fix here. And he's talking about the step up in capital gains, where he mentioned Bill Gates, who has had enormous success, created a great company, made $100 billion, but none of that likely will ever face a tax because it will not get taxed upon his death. That's a very different proposal from many say confiscating the wealth of the wealthy every single year. So yes, it's a healthy debate, but why does the wealth tax to you make sense versus these other proposals?
Because it gets to that exact point. We not only have extreme income inequality in this country, we have extreme wealth inequality, and that wealth inequality helps you build political power. So this does a couple.
But this is where Summers was really strong. He said, name one situation where, let's say, just because you took Mark Zuckerberg down from 70 billion to 50 or even 20 billion, that suddenly he would not have political power. He said that argument that wealth is translating into political power just doesn't make sense. So can you name one example where it would?
Yes, absolutely. Taking Mark Zuckerberg's money and using it to, say, invest in child care for everybody, say, invest in preschool for everybody. Oh, sure it does. By empowering the bottom of the population, you definitely distribute power away from the top. And of course, like, Mark Zuckerberg's still going to be able to call a member of Congress and get him on the phone. But by helping people at the bottom of the income scale build up wealth, build up resources, you are going to naturally rebalance some of that power away. Look, this isn't a panacea. I don't really buy Summers' argument that the wealth tax is the one thing that the Democratic Party is banking on. It's part of a wide suite of reforms that Democrats are talking about.
Aparna, I'm curious what you think the fair number is, and we talked about this with Lee Cooperman. What do you think the fair percentage of your annual either income or wealth should be in terms of what could fairly be taxed?
I mean, I think we have a pretty progressive tax system. You know, unlike what Saez and Zuckman are estimating as, you know, they're basically saying, look, it's a flat tax system, and at the top it's pretty regressive. I think when you actually look at the data on federal, state, and local taxes, we already do have a very progressive tax system. I mean, I have a lot of problems with their analysis of how they come up with the numbers looking regressive, and a lot of economists will tell you, you know, you look at the tax and transfer system at the bottom, they're completely excluding that when looking at all the the progress we've made in trying to address poverty through refundable tax.
Well, let me ask you a different question then. Do you believe we need more revenue?
We do need more revenue.
Okay.
I think we could, but it's also a question of how you use that revenue. You know, you
100%.
You can have a fair tax system, but then use that to encourage mobility at the bottom. I absolutely believe that. But I think you need to figure out, you know, I don't think the wealth tax is the way to do it. I think, as Pat mentioned, you can have, you can address the capital gains realization or the fact that capital gains are not realized and not taxed. You know, those are the kinds of things that we can try to fix in the short term. You can get more revenues and you can do more for people at the bottom by addressing those challenges right now.
Pat, do you think any of this is actually going to really happen? I mean, unless you get a Democratic president and a Democratic Senate, do you think this is even plausible?
Well, I mean, it depends on the fate of the filibuster and the fate of the Senate, but I think it's still worth talking about. And we're missing the forest a little bit for the trees, folks. We're talking about a time when the 0.01% in this country has as much wealth as the bottom 90%. So I think quibbling around the edges about revenue is in some ways missing the point. It's important. We want to know how much money this thing raises, but I think it's inescapable that there's huge wealth inequality, and it's a really good, healthy debate.
Sure, everyone agrees on that, but it's always about what the solution is, not the problem. And Larry Summers and other people, including Joe Biden and some of the more moderate candidates, are saying, look, let's focus on the estate tax. Let's focus on capital gains. Let's focus on taking out all the loopholes that real estate guys and other people get in the tax code. That is a very different fundamental idea from doing something that 20 countries in the OECD used to do, which is the wealth tax, and now it's only 4.
Well, but Warren's plan is designed explicitly with those experiments in mind. So I don't think that's the fairest critique. She looked at those, and her people looked at those countries and learned from their experience, which is exactly what we should be doing.
What did they learn? And how do you?
That in the EU, it's really easy to hop countries because it's the EU and you can move borders really easily. You can't do that here, and it has a huge exit fee if someone tries to do it.
So people do. So money does go where it's treated best.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there are going to be implementation challenges. Nobody disputes that. And if one of the results of this plan is that we have to give a bunch of money to the IRS in order to learn, again, how to audit rich people, I think that's great. Right now, we're auditing poor folks at the same rate that we're auditing rich folks. And the IRS admits it's because that's what they have the resources to do. So part of this plan is most definitely going to have to include reinvigorating the IRS, refocusing resources on auditing rich folks. That's a feature, not a bug.
Okay. Pat, Aparna, thank you. Appreciate the conversation. It's a debate that I imagine we'll be doing a lot more. Coming up next when we return, we're going to talk about Boeing trying to bounce back after that stock saw its worst day of trading in 3 years. It's down a little over 1% right now. That story is next. And at the top of the hour, Senator Mike Braun's going to talk trade, taxes, and much more. Squawk returns right after this.
Interactive Brokers charges 3.4% for a $100,000 margin loan. Do you know how much your broker charges? Upwards from 7.82% at Fidelity or Schwab to as high as 8.5 to 9% at Ameritrade or E-Trade. Move your account to Interactive Brokers and save at least $4,400 or much more if you're trading big bucks.
Yesterday, I switched jobs and lost my vision benefits. But thanks to my VSP individual vision plan, I'm back to saving on eye exams and glasses. Get an extra $20 to spend on featured frame brands when you enroll today at vspdirect.com.
I created Hint Water to make water taste better. We started in one grocery store. Now we're online and everywhere. And we couldn't have done it without NetSuite. NetSuite's cloud-based software gives me visibility and control of all my business systems. Budgeting, forecasting, supply chain, everything I need to keep growing. NetSuite makes running my business simple, so I can focus on what I love and what's next.
Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/grow.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Boeing responding to a former test pilot after he raised concern over the plane maker's now grounded 737 MAX jet. Phil LeBeau joins us now with more. And we said test pilot. One of the pilots that was testing the new, I think of Chuck Yeager when I say test pilot. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, this was in the simulator still,
Yeah, on the simulator too. Yeah.
Right. And there's still more questions than answers in terms of what exactly did the chief technical pilot back in late 2016, early 2017 mean when he was exchanging instant messages and emails regarding his thoughts on MCAS, talking with regulators, etc. And that's really what this all swirls around. They started coming out late Thursday night into Friday morning. We saw the sell-off on Friday because of this. And again, it surrounds the MCAS flight control software, the performance of it within the simulator, and his conversations or alleged conversations with regulators. Did he mislead the regulators? Now, Boeing on Friday put out an initial statement saying, we are committed to the safety of the 737 MAX. Yesterday, they came out with another statement saying, we understand entirely the scrutiny this matter is receiving and are committed to working with investigative authorities and the U.S. Congress as they continue their investigations. Well, those investigations are heating up, but it's not stopping analysts from saying, you know what, too many questions and not enough answers. UBS out this morning downgrading Boeing, saying we see increasing risk that the FAA won't follow through with a certification flight in November and lift the emergency grounding order in December. We think a push out of the return to service could increase the likelihood of a pause on the 737 MAX production system. Credit Suisse also downgrading Boeing, saying we can no longer defend shares in light of the latest discoveries which significantly increase the risk profile for investors. As you take a look at shares of Boeing, keep in mind the board met yesterday in San Antonio, and the company will be reporting earnings on Wednesday. Guys?
Phil, thank you very much. Let's bring in Eric Desenhall. He's the CEO of Desenhall Resources. Also, Mark Dombroff, who is aviation attorney and a partner at Fox Rothschild. Why don't we start with you, Mark, and just talk a little bit about what we see so far. The stock market is not waiting to see what happens with this. Boeing shares were down 9% last week. They're down more than 1% again this morning. What would you be telling people right now?
Well, I think it's premature to really put too much weight in terms of the text messages that we're looking at. I think clearly a lot of questions have to be asked. Context has to be arrived at. I think we have to know what the follow-through was with respect to Boeing and the test pilots involved. It was in the simulator. It was back in 2016. I think Phil's comment about there's a lot more questions than perhaps there are answers is accurate. And I think for anybody to take any sort of action at this stage or make conclusions at this point really is premature.
I should point out again, you're speaking as a lawyer, not as an analyst who's going to be telling people what to do with the stock.
Absolutely.
But with the law, you have time on your side. You can kind of wait and follow things through. If you're somebody who's watching what this means to the company, it's $1 billion a month for every month that they don't get that plane back up and running. And I would say, based on the FAA chief's reaction to this, which seemed pretty harsh, pretty stern, kind of questioning why other agencies had access to those texts and messages months ago and they are just getting this. I would say that does not bode well for that plane being approved by the FAA or any of the international authorities that would have to sign off anytime soon.
Well, I think that's correct. There's different constituencies or stakeholders out there. Certainly the financial markets are one of them. But looking at it from a safety perspective, this all has to be run to the end game in terms of understanding the context of these text messages, just like the whole issue regarding the investigation. So I think, again, various stakeholders move at different speeds and draw various conclusions based upon available information.
Eric, Dennis Muhlenberg goes before Congress, and it now has this as the backdrop. Not exactly what they were hoping for. They split the chairman and CEO roles, took the chairmanship away from him, and maybe were hoping that would quell some of the anger from Congress. Now you have this kind of kicking everything back up. What would you advise as somebody who is looking at public relations in this front?
Well, I think you have two issues here. You have the real solution, and then you have the theater of crisis management. The real solution has to do with what the real problem is, which is either an engineering problem or the perception of an engineering problem. Until the airlines are comfortable that these problems are caused by X specific thing, and this is the solution, nothing changes. Then you have the theater of crisis management, which is like an episode of Succession, where everybody is sitting around figuring who goes on TV and does the interview and who goes before Congress, because whoever is public ends up losing their job. And that's what's being debated right now. With the revelations over the weekend, what you have is a lot of red meat for the media and for investigators that they're going to have to answer. But ultimately, the solution is going to have to involve diagnosing what the actual problem is here.
Wait a second. Did you just say whoever goes before Congress loses their job? Are you suggesting Muhlenberg loses his job if he goes before Congress with this?
What I'm suggesting is whoever becomes the public face of this, of something like this, often loses their job, because in the theater of crisis management that we're dealing with, people think that that is the answer, whether or not it really is, because this is the time that we're living in, when people don't understand that most of these crises are not resolved through a PR ploy. They are resolved by solving whatever the engineering, mechanical, operational problem is.
Mark, I would take that a step further. I would say what Eric laid out about was there an engineering problem? Is there a fix? I would say on top of that, Boeing now has the issue of, have they been forthright? Has there been pressure on their employees, as the Journal says today, to try and put forth and push on safety standards before they were actually ready to do that? I think that is probably the biggest problem facing Boeing, particularly if they're going to be taking these on to the courts. What do you think?
Well, I think, again, it's kind of premature to talk about pressure on Boeing employees. I saw the story in the Journal. I saw it was a survey involving something in the order of 500 employees, and it had to do with former employees. And I think there was a reference to potential stress. The fact of the matter is, in virtually every business, including in the aviation industry, there's stress, there's pressure to maintain schedules and so forth.
Right, but you've got over 350 people who are dead.
Well, I think in the context that we're talking about, though, against the backdrop of 2 accidents and the controversies that surround it and the investigation, something that is common in most industries in terms of pressure to move things forward takes on a special significance. But I'm not prepared at this point to say that there's really anything significant about that story.
Think there's nothing to see here?
I think it's premature to say that there is anything to see here, just like it's premature.
Something to see here. Whether it was intentional or not intentional, you're talking again about more than 350 people who died on 2 separate accidents. The airline waited after both those accidents to actually, the company waited to actually ground those. And now you're talking about international flight administrators who are going to be questioning this very broadly.
Well, I think what we're really talking about right now is the investigation and what that investigation yields. So I think it's premature. We don't have either investigation out from either the Indonesians or the Ethiopians. So to jump to conclusions is premature.
It does mean that you are going to be looking at longer delays. Maybe we'll see something in November from the Ethiopians.
Agreed.
It does mean that we're going to be looking a lot longer before you see anything. This is not something that's going to get covered up. Somebody's going to get to the bottom of it, one way or the other.
Agreed.
Mark, Eric, thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up when we return, a big week of earnings. We're going to run you through what you need to watch, plus Senator Mike Braun of Indiana discussing taxes, the trade war, and so much more. Take a look at futures right now. Dow up about 66 points. S&P 500 looking to open up about 11 points higher. And we're right back in just a moment.
Can we just order a pizza?
Already done.
How'd you order so fast? Okay, so we should start shopping right now.
Why are you guys playing the same game? La 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 la. How is this not bugging you? How did you find such a cool place to stay?
ServiceNow put our workflows in the cloud. This changes everything.
You're right, sir. Everything.
No, not everything. I mean, you're still blatantly sucking up to me, Gary.
Brilliantly observed, sir. Always 3 steps ahead. 6 steps ahead. 16. So many steps.
You done?
1 million steps ahead.
Let's look at this again.
ServiceNow. Works for you.
At Angie's List, we help you feel confident about hiring pros for home projects. You can check their ratings, read verified reviews, and easily request multiple quotes. Find all the pros you need to know at angieslist.com.
Requesting time off? Well, that's a pain.
Clocking in should be easy, right?
First, I have to print a
Wrong.
form,
I think I'm getting carpal tunnel from stapling receipts to expense reports.
I wish I had 10 more passwords at work. My HR app is user unfriendly.
It's frustrating.
Like heaven for a mattress.
I will never love another human more than I love my bed. Life is too precious not to be sleeping on the comfiest mattress ever.
This is the best night's sleep we've had in years.
With over 50,000 five-star reviews, it's no wonder Casper is America's #1 rated mattress.
We need a bond on this project. I asked Markham. You know what? Here's an idea. Let's ask Markham. That's good. Hey, now, lunch. Yeah, there's a couple
Ever wonder where the people with all the answers get all the answers? Ask Markham, accountants and advisors.
The battle for subscribers and content fueling headwinds for Netflix. What moves could deliver confidence and a competitive edge for investors? Squawk Alley today.
Under pressure, Boeing shares down again this morning amid questions about the company's 737 MAX jet.
Tech under fire. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg prepares to head to Capitol Hill this week.
Plus, follow the money. What fundraising totals could tell us about the race for the White House as the final hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the most powerful city in the world, New York, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Joe Kernan, along with Becky Quick and Andrew Ross Sorkin. U.S. equity futures are right about where they've been all morning long, indicating a 65-point or so move higher at the opening bell on the Dow. The NASDAQ indicated up about 30, and the S&P up about 11. A lot of things swirling about today, mostly a lot of Boeing scuttlebutt, but also something here with the opioid crisis.
Okay, breaking news on the opioid trial. It is set to begin today. We are seeing headlines that 4 drug companies have reached a last-minute settlement. And we want to get over right now to Meg Terrell, who joins us with the latest. Meg.
Hi, Andrew. And literally the minutes leading up to opening arguments here in Cleveland, reports that 4 of the defendants involved in the trial here have reached a settlement with just these 2 Ohio counties to avoid going to trial here. Those defendants are McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and Teva Pharmaceuticals, the 3 big distributors and the 1 drug maker left in the trial here. Now, this is not a broader settlement, according to the Wall Street Journal reporting that we're seeing here, that would take care of the thousands of cases against these companies. It is just to avoid going to trial here today. There is a 5th defendant, Walgreens, that the Wall Street Journal reports hasn't yet reached a settlement. It's unclear whether the trial would continue with just that 1 defendant. Now, we are trying to dig more into this. The Journal's reporting that the settlement details should be out before opening arguments at 9 a.m., so we'll keep an eye on this space. But again, this would just take care of the trial set to begin here today, not the thousands of cases still pending in the opioid crisis. Back over to you guys.
Okay, Meg, thank you for that. If this was the bellwether to take it out of the mix, it's interesting in terms of what happens next. But let's also bring a couple other big headlines right now. Halliburton posting quarterly earnings in line with estimates. Revenue did fall short as it was hurt by a slowdown in North American shale drilling. Take a look at shares right now. You're looking at that just off marginally. And we should also tell you this morning, Bridgewater's flagship fund reportedly lost 2.3